Okay, we got that going. Oh, you know, I should have done this a while ago. And that. Oh boy. Okay. Do that and pop out the chat. And stretch that down. I know I forgot to do something. All right, cool. All right. I think we should be good. I hope everyone's doing well. Let's see here. Hello from still raining Massachusetts. Yeah, we're going to be pretty clear today. Hot, but clear. I don't know if it'll be humid or not. It was humid yesterday. John Ashley Smith says it's going to be a muggy, sticky day here. Perfect for hobbying in my nice, cool garage. Indeed. Let's see here. Muggy and hot Kansas. It seems that we've got a bit of a thing going there. According to the Apple playbook, it'll just be Kill Team, and there is no other version. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Guillermo says, good morning from Paraguay. How are you doing? Let's see. Spain, how you doing? Hudson, Illinois. I'm going to paint my Dominion Stormcast with you today. Nice. Good to hear it. Sunny Quebec. Salt Lake City. Greetings from Gothenburg. Putting the finishing touches on some wood elves, assuming I don't fall asleep on the couch because it's too hot. Yeah. sometimes I have a hard time sleeping when it's hot. How you doing, John Ashley Smith? Mountaineer, how you doing? From West Virginia. Not sure if I'm going to make the plunge on Kill Team. Seems like an update came too soon, says DJ Todd P. Harris. I mean, again, like I said, I think if it was just an update to the game, I would totally agree. As it is, they're completely changing it. Even then, I still agree a bit. You know what I mean? It still feels like next year could have been a better deal, but what are you going to do? You could always wait to pick it up next year. There's that too. The humidity, I can leave a glass outside, come back in 5 minutes, it'll be full. You don't want to drink that. That's going to be icky. Afternoon from a surprisingly warm and sunny Colchester. West Coast Sweden, west of England, Krakow, Poland. Good morning from the Philippines. I've been making my new desk and workstation area all day. Wow, that sounds like a lot of work. Good morning from Annapolis, Maryland. Hello from Germany, West Wales, Ottawa. It's also hot in Wales as well, indeed. I've been hearing it's been pretty warm over there on that side of the pond, as they say. Pretty muggy in Bristol. Stream looks fine here. Hi from England. Pro JG, how you doing? Hello from Bad Elster, Germany. Currently packing my luggage for my trip home tomorrow. Well, good to hear. I haven't packed bag in, gosh, almost a year and a half, I think. Yes, a year and a half. Well, no, that's not true. Almost a year and a half. Good morning from Western Colorado, lurking while at work. Can't wait to get back into my rain and Helcabal. Nice. Afternoon from Cheshire. Working on some 10mm English Civil War. We got some Bristol, UK. I was thrilled to get a box of North Star Mini Stargrave Troopers the other week. Perfect for my Tomorrow War forces. Those are nice models. They're very... The sculpting style is very smooth. Like, no one seems to have much of a wrinkle in their clothing, you know what I mean? So it's interesting. Like, they are a little odd that way. But I think if I paint them, because I'm building a Stargrave / Space Weirdos, etc. Crew out of those models, and I'll probably build some more as well in the future. But I think if I paint them kind of grungy, it'll help. But they are kind of very smooth in comparison to a lot of other models where, like, you bend the arm and then you get like folds in the, like, they kind of, I don't know, they're interesting. They're a different kind of sculpting that I'm used to, but I think they're kind of cool. Hola from Tampa, Florida. Just can't wait right now to get what my towel lists will be. Had just started for Kill Team 2018, sure. And now need to hold for this show what changes are coming. Yeah, I was about to start working on some new Imperial Guard. I did a video about, working on some new Imperial Guard for Kill Team, and now I'm I think like everybody else waiting, I think it's a smart idea to wait at this point. Now, we're not waiting that long. It's coming out probably in about a month. If I had to guess, I would say late August. I could be wrong, but I would bet late August. Let's see. Good morning from Charlotte, North Carolina. Hello from the south side of Telabheim. I don't know where that is. Got South London, Australia, Finland. Working on some Space Wolves in the rainy UK. Working on the Howdah for the Stegodon. So many fiddly details. Pretty stoked. Just finished my Kings of War War in the Holds box. Time to prime. Yeah, I did some... I didn't do any priming this weekend. I did some other stuff, but I did not so far do any priming. It was too muggy out, really. Well, I've been working more on terrain, which I'll get to in a little bit, and I generally like to prime my terrain with Rattlecan if I can. I think I will hit like. Well, that is very nice. I appreciate it. Greetings from Zionsville, Indiana. How's Oshkosh this weekend? Might come up for EA next weekend. It's, we went out to dinner last night, my wife and I, and there's already folks in town, obviously, for the big show. There's a big, I think it's either the largest air show in the world, or it sometimes goes back and forth with the Paris Air Show. It's certainly the largest air show in the United States. And I think for a number of years, and I don't know if this is still the case, it was also the largest convention in the United States, because generally about 500,000 people come here to the little town I live in, and it's all airplanes all the time. And they didn't get to have it last year for the first time in 57 years or some junk like that. So they are definitely doing it this year. And generally, if you live here in town, you try to stay off that side of town because everything will be clogged with folks because, 500,000 people. So there's that. In the future, there are no wrinkles. Could be, sure. I mean, yeah, you get anti-wrinkle material. Just put starch in their clothes and they iron. I can see that. Good morning from Des Moines. I always assume an Aussie is always around, just like the people under the stairs. Hello from Smoky, is that Canada or California? I'm not sure. I know we got some of the smoke from Canada earlier this week. I think it was Tuesday. I was outside with Diesel, having a little walkabout, as we like to do. And I was looking down the street, and I'm like, wow, it's really hazy. That's weird. I wonder what's going on. It doesn't feel that humid. It's kind of humid, but not like, almost kind of foggy when you look down the street, kind of hazy. And then I pulled up my phone, looked at the weather app, and it was like, oh, a special, air quality advisory. And then it was like, oh, wildfires. And, I think, again, like I said, I think it was Canada will be affecting your area. And I was like, oh gosh. So, yeah. Los Angeles. I'm still painting up basic troops for my kill team. Can never go wrong with basic troops. It's true. It's very true. Woke up just in time. I think I'll work on terrain. Nice. Hello from Andrews, Texas. Morning from Australia. Wet Canada reporting in. Learning more about the new kill team makes me excited for it. Yeah, I didn't check this morning to see if there's a new article out. I'm sure there probably is. But yeah, so far I'm cautiously optimistic. Maybe a little bit more than that. Like a little better. Like if you got your scale of like oh no to like hooray, and cautiously optimistic is somewhere in the middle. Maybe it's just a little bit higher is where I am. I like Warcry, and so therefore, and the rules for Warcry I think are very interesting, and also very different than a lot of the normal GW stuff where you roll to hit and then you roll to wound and then someone rolls to save, and it's just I like the system, and it seems like they're kind of pulling a bunch of stuff from Warcry system to use in the new kill team, which I think I didn't mind the old kill team. I know a lot of people had problems with the wounds kind of mechanic, but otherwise I can see why they're doing this. Someone brought this up in a comment, I think, in the video recently. Basically, they're saying that doing it this way means that, like right now, when 8th edition came out, or sorry, 9th edition came out, and the new Codex came out, and now Space Marines have 2 wounds, then everyone's like, well, we're going to have 2 wounds on the kill team Space Marines? Like, what's going on there? And blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of that. If it happens here, it needs to happen there. And now with this new version of kill team, a guardsman has 7 wounds. So there's no, you don't go, there's no link really, so you can kind of not have to worry about making changes to one and having it affect the other or not affect the other, and then people go, why doesn't it affect the other? And it's a whole thing. So yeah. Let's see here. Oh goodness. Let's see here. My FLGS says they'll start pushing the new kill team this weekend, whatever that means. I think that the stores are being told to some degree when to start telling people about stuff and when to not. And I'm wondering if that's some sort of feature of like, we don't want, like, just because of the way the world is right now, it's incredibly difficult to ship stuff places, this, that, the other thing. I just saw a graphic a couple days ago in one of the Facebook groups that I'm in that's like game publishers and stuff like that. And like the price to rent a shipping container to take it, stuff from China to say like the US has, I think, tripled or quadrupled in the last 6 months or 12 months. So like game publishers are like, how am I going to get all my stuff that's getting cranked out in China back here for Kickstarters and whatnot? And I'm like, I don't know. That's a good question. So yeah, there's that. Let's see here. Moved my whole hobby station to a new room. I'm excited to get started on a few warbands for Rain and Hell. Nice. That's always fun. Hello from Barcelona. Loving Rain and Hell. Well, thank you very much. I've started building my 2018 kill team terrain. Will still totally work. It's also really good terrain, but it will totally work. Let's see here. Just finished a unit of Bloodletters for Khorne. Do you know any good skirmish games I could use them in? Well, I should make a button for Rain and Hell. I don't have a button for Rain and Hell. I have one for Patreon. I got one for Twitch. I got one for t-shirts, I think. Yep, I should make a Rain and Hell one for the here, but I have not done that as of yet. But if you're interested, you could go to rainandhellgame.com and find out more. Taking a break from painting to rest my eyes for a few and sort components instead. Yeah, I have to take breaks sometimes too. Especially like later in the evening, if I've been painting for at least 2, 3, 4 hours, then sometimes I have to be like, I'm gonna like look at something further away, like television. Watch some YouTube on the television, or maybe it used to be I would play a video game like on the PlayStation and stuff like that. But now the PlayStation's in the basement, and I've been playing more PC stuff anyway, and I haven't been playing any PlayStation stuff because I haven't had it really hooked up. And then I'm still kind of close, but not as close. So it's difficult. Let's see here. I like what I'm seeing in the previews. Yeah, so far so good too. Wondering if your new projects have anything to do with your 3D printer. Just picked up my Elegoo Saturn myself. It does not yet. Eventually, yes, but not as of yet. I've got some pictures that I'll show you guys in a bit. Let's see here. Upstate South Carolina got some smoke. Wow. Oh, well, it was a planned controlled burn. Well, that's good then. I have like a... let's see here. Global shipping is still a mess. Check out these sites that monitor maritime traffic. The port backups are insane. Yep. Will Pariah Nexus be obsolete? Not that I got it. Don't need doors. But the timing of the release is unfortunate. I would say, frankly, it is. I mean, the book itself will be obsolete because the stats and all the information in there for the Necrons and the Space Marines, that's not a thing at all. Like that, all the stats are completely changing. It's not just like we're going to tweak the numbers. Like there's no, strength and toughness and all that stuff. Like that's not a thing anymore. So there's that. The doors will still be doors, and the board is still a board. The trash cans are still trash cans. The models are still fine. I mean, and even really probably the scenarios, you could probably use the scenarios as well. Probably. Because of the new thing with the fire teams, where they're like, oh, well, some armies are just one kill team, and some armies are up to 2 fire teams, or have to be 2 fire teams, or whatever. I do wonder if they're going to try to put in that same kind of thing that they do in Warcry, where you have to split your team into... So in Warcry, when you start out, you have to split your team into 3 groups. I think it's Dagger, Hammer, and Shield. And then the different deployment zones on the maps for the different missions you have. They'll be like, oh, well, Dagger has to go here, and then second turn, these two can come in over here and here. And that's just the way that the deployment zones work. A normal campaign or a normal scenario is harder to work into that situation because they don't have those special deployment things and all that kind of stuff. But you could probably still figure it. If you want to take, like, it's a tabletop game. You can squish it to do things you want. But I do wonder if the scenarios going forward will have, like, if you only have one fire team, then you deploy here turn 1. But if you have 2 fire teams, then you deploy here turn 1 and here turn 2, or something like that. They may work it in like that. They may not. I'm not sure. Let's see. DC's been hazy from the smoke. It's weird. Uncle Adam did find out what's going on with your new lens for your Twitch stream and why its focus was screwing up. I don't know why it was doing it, but I got it to stop. Basically what I did is I took the lens off, and then I have this kind of squeezy rubber bulb that then has a little probe on the front, and it's for blowing air into stuff, because if you just take your camera and go like that, you'll probably spit inside your camera, which is not a good thing to do. So you use this kind of thing to blow air in there. It has a filter in the back too, so it doesn't suck in dust and then blow dust onto your camera, which is not what you want. So I blew it out a good deal and put that macro lens back on, and that's the lens I was using on Friday's Twitch stream. If you're interested, then yeah, you've got, I stream on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central and on Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Central. And last Monday, we had some lens issues where the lens wanted to keep constantly focusing and then unfocusing and back and forth, and I couldn't figure out why. So I had to switch lenses real quick. But yeah, Friday was fine, so not sure what that was. How can someone get a head start on Kill Team 21? For instance, do you kit bash the Orc Commandos? I browsed through some of the units and I didn't recognize it's 40k, though. I mean, if you're interested in an army, if you started working on excuse me, if you started working on some, what do you call them, like some regular just plain old troops, so like Fire Warriors if you're interested in Tau, regular Guardsmen if you're interested in, or just plain old Space Marines, whatever, those will probably be usable. So if you started working on 4 or 5 of them, you'll probably be able to put them into some sort of fire team or whatever. Do you see elites being carried over to the new Kill Team? I really wish that they would put elites and commanders into the compendium that they launch with, but I have a strong suspicion they won't, and they'll make you buy extra books, because lately GW has been addicted to books. So, I mean, I'm thinking if I'm buying a compendium, if previously I had the rules and most of the armies, almost all the armies, in one book, and now I have to buy 2 books, both of those books better be worth it, and so therefore there better be really good campaign rules in the rule book, and there better be, in my opinion, I would really like there to be elites and commanders in the compendium, but I would bet you they won't be. So it's sad. Hey, moderator Matt, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. I always thought the Warcry groups should have been split up into Snap, Crackle, and Pop. No, I can see that. Hello, Uncle Adam. I painted 3 2K armies for Age of Sigmar. I need to change a game. I'm also going through Lord of the Rings Revival in my life. Did you ever play Middle-earth strategy game? What do you think of it? I've never played it. I bought the original book when it first came out, and I thought the rules looked pretty interesting, but I've never played it. I have built... There was a set you could buy. It was just like a small box, and it came with like Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas, I think, and I built them and I haven't painted them yet, but I was going to use them for a different game or something anyway, because they're cool models. But and I own the Lake Town houses for reasons, but I have not built them yet as well as either. But I know a lot of people do like the strategy battle game stuff. The Middle-earth stuff is what it's called now, I guess. But that's very cool. Let's see here. I don't know what the issue was, but I fixed it. Me on modern technology. Well, I tried to turn it off, turn it back on again, and that didn't fix it, so that's weird. But then at one point, like on Friday morning when I woke up, I found out that our power had been out for a split second or who knows how long, but it had been out for a little bit. And then maybe just that was instead of just turning it on, turning it off again, actually unplugging it, not actually unplugging it, but just unplugging the house. Maybe that fixed it. Stranger things. Let's see here. With the new kill team rules, what would you recommend for a non-GW player, Warcry or kill team? Part of it depends on whether you like fantasy stuff or whether you like sci-fi stuff. That's a big deal in between the two. Otherwise, I think they're going to be a little... I don't want to say the same, but I think they're going to be... I think kill team's going to have... Because of the range stuff, and I think it's going to be just a little bit more detailed than Warcry is. So if you're new, Warcry might be good. And if you like fantasy stuff, and the Warcry models and the just regular Age of Sigmar models are awesome. So that's something to take a look at. But yeah, you might want to take a look at that. But you also might really like sci-fi, and then I would probably hold out for kill team if you're looking at those two choices. The unfollowable nature of the rulebook volumes make all the rulebooks seem less valuable as purchases. I don't know. I haven't had too much trouble with layout and stuff like that. Necromunda is real hard to read in spots because their background texture on the page is too dark. But other than that, I don't usually have terrible trouble. Especially I really like what they did, honestly, with 9th edition 40K, in that they'll have, here's a paragraph of very dense information, and then here's the bullet points about that paragraph. So if you're just trying to play and have fun with your friends, you can kind of go through, scan through, look at these bullet points. But if you're a very serious tournament player, you can say, well, it says here, right in line 3, it says but, and not or whatever. I don't know, that kind of stuff. So, let's see here. Off topic, but is there a list builder for Rain and Blood? I can't figure out how to build a list. It's available now in Battlescribe, so if you like Battlescribe, I know that Battlescribe can be a little sometimes impenetrable as well. As far as building a list, you just need to pick a leader, and you have one of 3 different types of leaders. You have a warrior, a schemer, or a zealot. So you pick one of those, you get them for free, and then depending on which philosophy you pick, which is like your faction, then that determines which devout you have to take, and you get your devout for free as well. Then you have 100 points to use generally minions, which if you're playing a campaign game, you can only pick lesser demons, lesser minions as opposed to greater or superior, and then it's just 100 points. And they don't have options and oh, we'll give this guy a such and such weapon and then he costs more or anything. They're the points that they are on the tin. So generally almost all faction or almost all beginner cabals in Reign in Hell start with 7 models. So that's just kind of the way it works out. And you can't have more than 10 models. That's just a hard and fast rule. It's a hell rule. It's out of our hands. But yeah, it's not particularly difficult generally. But there is, like I said, if you're in a Battlescribe, it's available on Battlescribe now. What are your favorite aspects of the Warcry rules? I just really love skirmish, so I love building small forces and stuff like that. But I also like the speed. It's a quick kind of oh, these guys hit with they throw 3 dice. Cool, I throw 3 dice. I see what I did, and then it's back. I also like crits. I saw somebody recently complaining about crits because well, you can't have crits on a D6 system because you'll be getting crits 16% of the time, and I'm like, what's wrong with that? I don't know. I love the fact that my Skaven plague monks do 1 damage unless they roll a 6, and they do 5 damage. That's a little gross, and I kind of like it, but you can't depend on it in any way, so that's kind of cool too. But again, I'm not a tournament player who wants things to be very, very specific. I like to have fun. That sounds mean, but I'm gonna stick with it. Yeah, I like the kind of swingy nature of that kind of stuff. Lumberbean says, good morning, I'm looking to get into Kill Team with Tau, but torn between the Pathfinder box and the Fire Warrior box. Funds are limited, I'm not competitive. Any suggestions? Until we see the new stuff, I don't know. I can't really say, oh, you should definitely go with these guys versus these guys. I think the Pathfinder models look cooler, but you would probably want to know the stats before that actually happens. Looking to get into... Oh, I just read that one. What's your favorite special use paint? Example, I really enjoy cedar up and rubber, though it has limited use. What it does really well. I wish I would have had some of that last night because I was painting tires. Let's see. Special, I mean, I would say probably the Turbo Dork stuff. Excuse me. Probably the stuff from the Turbo Shift paint from Turbo Dork. They do really nice stuff, and I've used it a bunch on a couple different projects, including those guys. They do this a lot. Tyranids. I'm like, Tau? No. I'm going to use them on Tau eventually. When I do my Tau, my stealth suits are going to be painted in that color shifty Turbo Dork paint. But otherwise, I've used them on Tyranids. I've used them on the wings of my Puscoil Blightlord. I've used them on some of and my Night Haunts. And my next Night Haunts are going to be also Turbo Dork as well. Because, yeah. So, I like Turbo Dork a lot for that kind of stuff. A bit over a year ago, I was all in on 40k models, and then some random uncle and that introduced me to Warcry, and I really like their fantasy models these days. Fantasy models are great. I mean, whether you like to, like, the actual Warcry models, there are some in there I dig. I like the Iron Golems, I like the Corvus Cabal, even though generally I don't like birds. Like I don't like the Zangors and stuff like that. But these guys aren't birds, they're guys dressed like birds, which I guess is different. They're not bird people, they're just cosplaying as birds. That's fine. I don't know why, but it is. But otherwise, the majority of my stuff is all it's all regular Age of Sigmar stuff, and I like that a lot because I like being able to go. I've always thought that Skaven are cool, but not 200 models in my army cool. But 13 models, sweet. That's absolutely. Do we know whether Kill Team rules and compendium books will release at the same time as the box in August? That's, I believe, what they said in the Twitch stream a couple Saturdays ago, or 3 Saturdays ago, whenever the heck that was. I'm 98% sure they said, hey, the box is going to come out, but also the book's going to come out, and also the compendium's going to come out. I'm pretty sure I remember hearing that. I could have made that up, but I'm pretty sure I remember hearing that. It's the largest mini you can have in Kill Team. Lictor, maybe, from the Tyranids? Maybe? I don't know. That's a good question. It's funny because I get people who are like, I just can't wait till they can, put vehicles into Kill Team. And I'm like, that's 40k. Just play 40k. Kill Team shouldn't be vehicles or cavalry or, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. So there's that. Painting a diorama while listening. Nice. Can't wait for those Kriegs. Is the new Kill Team a limited box? It seems like it's going to be what they've been calling... They don't like to call it limited. They like to call it splash. I've been hearing that term thrown around. It's a splash release, meaning that you're going to end up wet. I don't know. It's a strange name. It's a marketing term. But yeah, so the splash release means it'll go splash, and then you'll be like, I don't have anything in my hands, but I'm just damp. And they'll be like... So yeah, it seems to be the case. They like to do that kind of stuff with these because it depends on the cost. If I had to guess, I would say that they're going to be $200 for the box because of the armies and all that kind of stuff. If it was cheaper, then it would absolutely be super limited because they're just basically like... It's kind of like they did with the original Kill Team back... Well, not original Kill Team, but original Kill Team back in 2018. They came out with that box. It was surprisingly reasonably priced, and it was full of amazing stuff. I mean, other than like the AdMech and the Genestealer cults, we already had those models, but all that terrain was astounding for that price. And then people were like, well, why can't I get it anymore? Well, that's kind of like what they call a loss leader. Then that they're like, hey, we want to get you interested and involved, so we'll put this thing out there that some people got, some people didn't. But if we keep putting it out there, we won't be making the money that we need to make. So now we'll just put out all the parts separately, and that So yeah, I have a suspicion that's going to be the same situation here. Potentially due to the pandemic, there may be even fewer versions. I don't know. Again, if you're not interested, well, first of all, 2 things. Number 1, I'm pretty sure that the Krieg and the Commandos, the Orc Commandos, are going to come out separately down the road. So if you're just like, I really just want this box because I really want the Krieg, well, just wait. Get yourself the rule book, get yourself the compendium, work on stuff, and then the Krieg will come out and you'll be fine. The other option is maybe you really want that terrain. It would be dumb of them not to sell it separately. They probably will. So, if you're like, I have to have all of it in one box, good luck. I mean, really, that's going to be, we'll see how it works out. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that they just cranked out a ton of them, and there's, because there's still Dominion on the shelves all over the place. They put out more of those, and I think that they thought they were gonna, or whatever, and so I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but we will definitely see. Any tips on how to manage new game hype for Kill Team 2021 in this case? I find myself very excited but unable to hobbies I don't know what to build or paint. I usually work on other stuff like terrain then. If I'm like waiting for a game to come out and it's a game for me, I play enough games that I've constantly got something else to work on, which we'll be talking about in a little bit. But if you're just like, I love Kill Team, I only play Kill Team, and now there's a new version of Kill Team, so I don't know what to do between now and then, work on some new Kill Team terrain, work on some scatter terrain for Kill Team. I mean, you could do all those different types of things, and then the stuff will come out, and then you can kind of go from there. Let's see here. I feel like splash release starters with great value is the exact opposite of the approach they'll need to, over the next decade, stay ahead of 3D printing and increasing competition. I do wonder how much they are starting to tailor their strategy as a company, taking into consideration 3D printing. I'm not saying that they're worried specifically, even though resin printing is great. I mean, if you would have asked me this question 3 years ago, I've been like, well, you don't 3D print miniatures. You 3D print terrain. You don't 3D print the miniatures. They look like garbage. And now with resin, I mean, if you look at most of the miniatures that we featured in the Rain and Hell book, most of those were 3D printed, and I'm astounded by the quality. And so, yeah, and there's so many people out there putting out great models now. Again, 3 years ago, I've been like, all the models on Thingiverse are garbage because they're free. Okay, not all, but most. Now, it's astounding the amount of cool stuff you can get. So, yeah, but I don't know how much they're bringing that into their strategy or not. Whenever people are like, oh, well, people are just going to, use other models and not use their stuff. Well, if you're a competitive player, they've already said, yeah, you can't bring 3D printed stuff, so there's that. If you're just not a competitive player, but you still want to play with Space Marines, you can get models that look Space Marine-ish, Space Marine-y, let's say. But basically almost nobody out there is putting out models that, if you looked at them, I have not seen a single model where you're like, this is a 3D printed Primaris Marine and this is a non-3D print. And first of all, because you'd have to completely resculpt that thing. Like a scan doesn't do the job very well. I don't know. If you're playing other types of games, let's say Rain and Hell, let's say something like this game which I've been looking at lately, Brutal Quest. This is from Nick Evans, who is the designer of Planet 28, which I talk about from time to time. And this is the fantasy version, basically, of Planet 28. Then 3D print all you want. Crank out some really cool stuff. You can find so many different things. Kit bash stuff, maybe 3D print parts that you can put onto regular GW models or Mantic models or Malifaux models, or whatever you want. That's cool. I love that kind of gumbo of mixing a bunch of different things together like that. But if, they might see sales dip a little bit here and there, but I think there's going to be a lot of people who still want Space Marines, who still want Sisters of Battle, who still want Tau, who still want Tyranids, who still want Nurgle, whatever. And, yeah, even the really good... There are people that are doing the Patreon things and cranking out STLs and stuff like that are good enough that they could easily work for Games Workshop, but they are, let's be honest, that's not all of them. That's the top 5% of the different Patreon people. Other people out there who are doing their work, stuff looks good, but it's not GW quality as far as the sculpting is concerned. That's my opinion. I kind of got wrecked after just getting into the hobby. I bought an Orc Start collecting box, and then like a week later, the new models were announced. I mean, the old models still work. That's the trick. But yeah, that kind of stuff happens. Any advice for fixing warped plastic parts, particularly large pieces for vehicles and such? Recently built some stuff that was warped heavily and had to do a bunch of bending to get things fixed. I mean, they'll tell you to use sometimes hot water. So like get yourself, I don't know how you get a bucket of hot water. I mean, you could, but you try, or maybe a bowl, depending on how big the part is. Like if it's a big part, that's going to be difficult. But if it's like a rhino door and it's warped, you could probably microwave a coffee mug full of water. Don't burn yourself, but and then you could dip it somehow without tweezers, and then get it to be a bit more pliable and shape it. That kind of stuff. Sometimes they'll say heat gun, but heat gun can go from working well to ruining stuff really quickly. It's a very fine line, so you have to be very careful with it. Also, again, don't burn yourself. But yeah, more often than not, when I'm seeing warped parts, it's generally resin. Although some terrain sometimes, especially when there's certain pieces of terrain that GW makes, specifically the stuff for Age of Sigmar, specifically the Ophidian Archway. I hate that thing. That thing is warped as heck. So, yeah, no fun. Not to mention plastic is easier to work with than resin. That's true. Core troops for the existing factions will all be viable. For example, one of the recent Kill Team articles mentioned Death Guard having fire teams comprising of 8 Poxwalkers or 3 Plague Marines. Yeah, so, like, it's interesting because people are complaining about, like, oh, well, they're taking all the points. It's really stupid and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but if you look at that article, they say that you can have you basically can run a fire team of 3 Plague Marines or 8 Poxwalkers. But when you look at my Plague Marine kill team, it's 6 Plague Marines, which would be 2 fire teams of 3, wouldn't it? So, like, just because they took the numbers out doesn't mean that the numbers don't still add up behind the scenes, I think, a little bit. And also, I think it's a lot of people still saying, well, yeah, but a plasma gun is so much better than this gun, so therefore they should be different costed, but yet they're still counting the same but that's, again, using the old stats. Nowadays, like if you look at the way they do it in Warcry, there's pluses and minuses to everything. So like, oh, I've got a spear, so that gives me extra reach. That's a bonus. It should be worth more. Oh, but it doesn't do as high of a crit or whatever. Whereas this thing, which has a shorter reach, like they balance all the weapons that way. Now, if you're like, well, you shouldn't balance weapons, well, then play 40k probably, I guess, is the plan. Or play the old version of Kill Team. You can do that too, But that's what ththey're kind of doing here is they're trying to make it so that weapons are a little bit more balanced. Again, let's say you're, again, guard, your flashlight is not going to be as powerful as a plasma gun. But you can also only take 1 plasma gun or whatever, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So they kind of do it that way. Talk about battle systems terrain. Worth it? Good value? 5 parsec Stargrave kill team terrain. Is battle systems, is that the Mantic stuff that used to come with Dead Zone? I'm not sure what battle systems terrain is. If it is that stuff, if it's the if it's the stuff that came from Mantic that came with Dead Zone, then the battle systems terrain is kind of nice. But it's very cubey. Like it's very cubey. But when I painted mine up for Dead Zone, if this is what you're talking about, I painted it to be in colors like, when you're sitting there waiting for a train. I don't know if you wait for a train. I live on the wrong side of the tracks, so I'm waiting for a train all the time. So you're waiting for a train and like the shipping containers are going by and they're like blue, orange, green, blue. And they're never, sometimes red, like a dark red, like an oxide red. But they're kind of brightly colored, but they've been out in the sun for so long that everything's kind of bleached down. That's kind of the look that I wanted to do with my battle systems terrain, because my thought process was, and this is the headcanon that's sometimes fun to do for these kind of things, when they colonized this planet, they brought all these shipping containers, and the idea was to then, after they took everything out of the shipping containers, to start building structures basically out of the components of the shipping containers. So that's why I kind of painted my Dead Zone terrain that way. But it's all at the studio. Had to use green stuff to get the Ophidian Archway together. None of the surfaces met. I know that it's a really, really warped piece of crap. I hope you can mix Marines and Poxwalkers. Yeah, it looks like you can go with a fire team of 3 Marines and 8 Poxwalkers. But you could also... Now, I don't know if you could go with 2 units of 8 Poxwalkers. Just because there wouldn't be a boss, involved. I don't know, but maybe you can. They may have, rules that are like, well, there's no leaders in Poxwalkers, so you can have Poxwalkers in your group as long as there's another fire team that has a leader in it, but you can't just run 2 Poxwalker groups of them making it 16 models because there's no boss. They would just bump into each other, which is fun. Battle systems is the core space stuff. I have no idea what that is then. No, I don't know. I missed out on the last Kill Team starter. This time I don't intend to let it get by me. Well, good luck. I'm hoping that people can do it for a lot of. I really want people to be able to have this because I know a lot of people are very interested. Is anyone here struggling to have fun with 9th edition 40k? My small gaming group seems to be abandoning the game after the changes to open play games. I mean, I don't see myself playing any more 40k, but it's not because of the rules or anything specifically along. It's me. It's not them. It's me. I'm just not interested in playing army-style games anymore with that many models and all that kind of stuff. And I don't like to move stuff in squads anymore. I like to move individual models and have everyone do their own kind of fun thing. And I like having 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 to 12 models or whatever, as opposed to a 2,000-point army, which it's not my jam. Dry brushing with cheap makeup brushes. Living the Uncle Adam dream. They are spectacular. I think it's for core space. Battle systems is the cardboard terrain. They have both sci-fi and fantasy. I don't think I know what that is. Huh. I have some cardboard terrain that I got at Gen Con a couple years ago. I don't remember it being called that, though. I'll have to take a look. Painted my Mantic terrain the same, shipping container style, complete with lettering sideways and numbers upside down. Nice. Very well. I didn't put any letters on, but I did put, like, here and there were, like, some stripes, like I'd airbrushed some kind of lines across them. I had a little stencil that I could lay down and do. But I did, the most important thing I did for that terrain, besides going on and sort of stippling on a little bit of rust here and there, is I used some, it's a wash from Secret Weapon washes, which means it's technically a glaze, but I've talked about that before. But there's a specific color of wash from Secret Weapon called Parchment, which when you kind of use a bigger brush and you sort of streak it down on terrain like that, it makes things look kind of sun-bleached because it basically puts almost like a filter over everything, and it kind of bleaches things out a little bit, makes it look sun-bleached. It's great for terrain and statues that are supposed to be outside that are like maybe more stone as opposed to, say, like a bronze statue. Bronze statue, you do that same thing, but more with a turquoise color if you can. But yeah. I'm my 5 parsecs from home. My home planet was like that with shipping containers. Nice. Trains, trucks, and heavy equipment are amazing sources of weathering inspiration. Absolutely. No, I've definitely like seen construction materials and stuff, or construction machines and things like that on walks, and then stopped and pulled up my phone and took pictures because there's like a cool rust thing going on or whatever and that kind of stuff. Kill Team terrain finally built and painted. 2 years to finish that project. Well, there you go. Poxwalkers can't have any specialisms, so I'm certain a fire team of them will be taken one off. Yeah, that would probably make sense. Again, like that's true. Yeah, you wouldn't have I don't think you have to take specialisms if you don't want to. I think that's a may sort of situation, but I don't know. I mean, again, who knows? They may have changed that or they may not. I'm not sure. Any word on the MSRP, the new Kill Team? No. Like I said, if I had to guess, I would say $200, but I don't know that for sure. How's the basement organizing going, Uncle Adam? I did a little bit yesterday. I bought these plastic shelves on little wheels, little casters, and I had this sort of spot kind of by my hobby area that had become just sort of a pile, and so I got everything out of there and then swept and kind of cleaned, and then I put those drawers in there, and then I started putting stuff from the pile in the drawers and putting stuff other places, and so I did some, but it's very slow because I don't want to do it, I think, is probably the issue. I want to, but at my core I don't want to. At my core I want to sit and paint and listen to some podcasts and I don't know, watch some YouTube, maybe play a video game down the road later in the evening or something like that. So there's that. Let's see here. Got to paint my Dead Zone terrain. Going to use Sam's salt method from the video. I have still never done that other than screwing around. Like, I've never done it on a piece of terrain that I'm like, hey, this is a thing I'm going to use on the table. I've used it as a test, like, Part of the reason is because, like, we don't have any hairspray in the house, so I'd have to actually go out and purpose buy some hairspray. And I don't remember where I was that I got like a little tiny travel bottle of hairspray, and then now I don't know where it is. But that's the only time I've ever had any hairspray, because, you know, this is all natural. Yeah, that's, I think, the big issue. I need to go out and find some actual little bottle of hairspray or something like that for just that stuff. Let's see here. Hey, Uncle Adam, can you please remind us of the name of the store-bought cleaner you use to strip models? Inquiring minds want to know. It's called LA's Totally Awesome. LA like Los Angeles, I guess. LA's, LA''S. LA's Totally Awesome. It is bright yellow, and it works great. Axe and Axe has got you there. There you go. Hey, Goobertown, how you doing? Working on my Beast Snagger. I hope to use them for new kill team. I think if they're anything like, well, I don't know. Is the Beast Snagger, because there's some of those I saw at the box of the new Orc dudes that came out yesterday or whatever, and there's some really cool big guys in there, but they are more cavalry style, and I suspect they won't be in kill team. But you might have some of the other guys in there, so that's kind of cool. Which part of the hobby is your favorite? Sometimes painting for me becomes a means to an end. I think I like, I don't know. I honestly like painting and building the same. I will be honest, I don't mind with, say, 3D printed buildings not having to really do a lot of building with them. You know what I mean? And I'll show you some of that in a little bit. But yeah, it depends. There are certain models that I'm like, I hate building this model because it's, that weird Chaos Lord on Drakadrak or whatever his name was, that came in the Start Collecting Slaves to Darkness box, that model can go die. So thankfully I found one that somebody had built but never painted on eBay after I screwed up the one that I tried to put together, and it was bleeding because it's so pointy. And so yeah, that'll eventually become a Warcry. I have those guys all built and primed, and I just haven't started painting them yet. It's great to see Disgustingly Resilient back to how it was before, ignoring wounds on a 5+. If you've seen well, specifically, I did a battle report in the beginning of 2020 with my friend John Caspian. He played Sisters, and I played the Death Guard. I did not miss a Disgustingly Resilient in that entire game. So at the end of the game, I had no guys dead, and I had killed most of his sisters, and it felt kind of bad. I just couldn't stop rolling 5s and 6s there, and so I do sometimes wonder if that's a thing that maybe is not necessarily great for that game, but you know. Got bored with 40k, building a 2-foot by 6-foot Mines of Moria homebrew board that's a foot tall in some places. Love the verticality and picturesque moments available in this terrain. That's another thing that's really cool about building like big terrain pieces, is then you can take cool pictures too. So that's fun. Used 91% isopropyl alcohol, not the beer, in a sonic cleaner, and it worked great to strip paint, better than LA's Totally Awesome. Nice. I find, at least it's probably getting better now, but for a good while finding IPA was hard because of the pandemic. But now I think it's a little bit easier, so that's good. LA's Totally Awesome will strip decades-old enamels. I don't know if I've had to use it on enamels yet, but that's pretty good to hear. What is the name of the large robot you just primed? I'd like to get one too. His name is Carl. No, that's not. Pictures. Here we go. There you go. So this is a Redemptor Dreadnought, which is basically the Primaris version of a Dreadnought. Now this one here is actually what they call a easy to build, ETB version, which means he's kind of push fit. That kit is no longer made, but I found one at my local game store last year that, because it's not in production anymore. The regular one of this guy is still in production, so you can still get the Redemptor Dreadnought. It's just going to cost a little bit more, but he has more options. This guy only goes together one way. Basically, he has that Gatling gun and he has that arm, whereas if you buy the slightly more expensive kit that's not easy to build or push fit, he has the option for like a plasma cannon instead of the machine gun, and you can swap out the. He's got like a flamethrower under this arm, but you can put a different gun there. I think another Gatling gun, maybe. I don't know, something like that. So, yeah. Now, all the skulls and spikes and all that extra added junk, that stuff is stuff that I put on there myself. That's all kit bashed. So I've got this thing where I like to make big robots, and if you watch me on Twitch, I talk about this sometimes. I like to make big robots that are like the battle is over, the battlefield is everyone's left. It's been a decade since the battle, but there's still like a big war robot kind of stomping around, doesn't know where it's supposed to be or what it's supposed to be doing, just looking for targets, but there's nobody here, it's just by himself. It's kind of like Wall-E, but with guns, you know what I mean? And I've painted a couple different models that way. I did the Necron Canoptic Reanimator that way. I've showed that. I don't have a picture of it here, sadly, but I've done that. I did an AdMech Armiger, one of those Warglaive Armigers or whatever, with the, I don't know, some sort of melted gun on one arm and like a big giant chainsaw on the other. And again, that's all been, painted up. And I know in the actual game, there's actually a person inside this, well, a part of a person. And I know in an Armiger that I believe that's supposed to be a person riding around inside there too. But I'm just modifying these models to make them look, and I'm painting them real grungy, and I don't know. Eventually I could see myself using them like in a fun game of like Planet 28, where you've got like two forces and they're fighting against each other, and then all of a sudden this big huge honking robot comes, and then they kind of have to like co-op and go against the robot, otherwise they'll all get killed. And so yeah, I just like painting those. It's more of a, I don't want to say it's a display piece because it's totally a gaming piece. It's just not for a specific game, but it could be used for a lot of different things. I mean, honestly, it could be used as a piece of terrain. You could just set it on the board and be like, yeah, that robot hasn't moved in 2 decades, just sat there, or whatever. So it's just cool, busted up terrain. So yeah, so while we're here, that's one project I'm working on. He'd been sitting on a shelf, unpainted or unprimed or whatever, for a while. And then just last weekend, I think it was, I primed him a color called Black Brown, which is a great kind of real dark brown primer from Proacryl, from Monument Hobbies. It's one of my favorite primers. And then I used a kind of bleach bone kind of airbrush color over the top, like a Zenithal sort of, because I want him to look like he was originally, like almost like, instead of being metal, most of my other stuff that I've done has got like a metal undertone with a lot of contrast colors, Agros Dunes, Skeleton Horde, stuff like that, to give him kind of like a rusty kind of corroded color. This guy, I wanted to make him look like he was made out of like ceramite or ceramite or whatever made up junk that I might come up with, or maybe Games Workshop came up with. But I want him to look like he was originally a lighter color, and now I'm going to grunge him up good once I get to starting to paint on him. Let's see. And then, what else am I working on here? Poke. Whoops, what happened? There we go. So this is a piece I'm working on too right now, and this will be something I can use in all kinds of stuff. Probably Space Weirdos, Stargrave, like Starfrost. That's not right. Frostgrave? Yeah. Stargrave. So yeah, this is going to be, I think, a fun project. So this is a 3D print, filament print, not resin. I had my friend Game 4 Matt from the Game 4 podcast. You should be definitely checking us out on the Game 4 podcast. But I had him print this model for me with his Ender 3 or something like that. And the model itself is from, there's this company called Imperial Terrain, imperialterrain.com, and they started off making basically STLs for buildings for Star Wars Legion, because there was no terrain for Star Wars Legion, so they started making stuff that looked kind of Tatooine-ish, and that kind of thing. And I've got a bunch of it, and it's good stuff. But they've recently made a new thing called terrainmachine.com. So terrainmachine.com, and in that it is kind of like Hero Forge. If you've ever looked at heroforge.com, it allows you to make a 3D model. So you're in your browser and you'd be like, I want it to be a lizard person, a lady, I want her to have a sword and these types of shoes and a funny hat, and you do all this stuff, and you can spin it around and look at it, and then when you're done, you can either say, please print this and send it to me, and it costs like $40, or you can say, I just want the STL so I can print this myself, or have my friend print this, and then it's like $8 or $10 for the STL. Well, that's what they're doing here, but it's for terrain. So currently they have 3 different, and this is not sponsored, this is just, I just think it's super cool, that they have 3 different, they've got like something that's kind of vaguely Necromunda-y, something that is more Star Wars-like, kind of reminds me of a lot of Mos Eisley, kind of station stuff, and then they got this stuff, which is just, I think in my opinion, which is more generic sci-fi. So you say, I want a 1x1 building, and then it's not feet or inches, it's just, the size. They have 2x1s, which are twice as wide, that kind of thing. But this is a square building, and then you can go on each side, spin it around, and say, on this side, and then it will show you like 15 different possibilities. I want this thing, and this, I want that. Plus, like that, the ladder, you can add in extra parts. Like there's a ladder on the back side, there's like a big air handling unit and stuff like that, so you can kind of tweak things even more. That little thing next to the door, that is it's like the thing that you push to unlock the door. That's also a little piece you can slide around and move and all that kind of stuff. But it's very cool. And then I just airbrushed it. I used filler primer on it, gray, and then I airbrushed a bunch of contrast colors on it here and there to grunge it up. And then that weird piece of graffiti, that was me. I just made that quick design on my computer in Illustrator, and then I used my Cricut cutter thing to cut it out of some Frisket film, which is this kind of stencil film that you use with an airbrush. It's sticky, but sticky like a Post-it note, so not too sticky, right? And then, so yeah, I'm working. I've got 6 or 7 of these buildings, and I know that Matt he told me, I think on Friday, that he was starting to print the second one, but they turn out real nice. So I'm going to be building like a whole small little board of this stuff, and be able to use it with Stargrave, Space Weirdos, any kind of sci-fi game I want. And I also have a bunch of other stuff too that I'm working on. No. Oh, well, I got these things too. I've also got some Star Wars type terrain that's kind of Tatooine-y. I didn't take any pictures of it, I don't think. But I do have some of that stuff. And then these were from the company Wreckage, and they were designed for post-apocalyptic stuff. They're made out of resin, and I've had them sit around for a while, and I decided I wanted to start painting them because I'm going to use them for terrain. Maybe, they might work in like a sci-fi thing, but I think they'll work in other stuff a little bit better. But yeah, they're very cool. They're resin pieces, and I just primed them black and then airbrushed, and then like that smaller piece there, you get that kind of nice sort of fade where it's like lighter in the center and then it kind of gets darker towards the edge of the panels. That's not me being fancy with blending. That's just me spraying more white in the middle and not as much in the outside, and then throwing a color over it. In this case, probably basilicanum gray, contrast. But yeah, that's what those contrast paints are great for. So these are not done. These are in progress. I need to finish up. I need to decide if the bases are going to be gray bases or brown bases, depending on what kind of surface they're sitting on, dirt or, rubble. And then I need to do a couple little extra pieces here and there to touch some stuff up. The middles of the tires, they need some work, all that stuff. And then I'll probably put a wash on a lot of it, and then I will dry brush the stuff with a big old fat makeup brush, and it will look pretty awesome. So these are all pieces that I'm, again, I'm a little bit of a holding pattern as well, as far as like, for Kill Team, kind of waiting to figure out what I'm going to do with the armies that I've got already that are done, and the armies that aren't done yet but are sitting on a shelf, and they're like built, but like I've got some that are built but not textured. I've got some that are partially built but not finished, and I think I've even got one that's like built and textured but not primed. But now I don't know whether, how those armies need to be modified for the new rules and stuff like that or whatever. So working on other stuff, I think, is a good way to go. So anyway, those are the only 3 pictures I got for these today currently, and stuff I'm working on for the things I'm working on right now. That's what I've been working on, and a little bit of it was this weekend as well. Pop out the chat. There we go. Mos Eisley. Airbrushing contrast. Yeah, when you airbrush contrast, what it does is it doesn't do the contrast thing anymore. It's a great transparent paint. It won't cover up what you put over it, but it will shade it and darken it down generally. So that's how I airbrush on contrast onto terrain all the time, because that helps it get that kind of dirty. Like, buildings generally have a tendency to get dirtier at the bottom because rain runs off the roof, then it hits the ground, and then it splashes up onto the building, and then it gets, over time, it gets grungy down there. Like, that's what you do. To make pieces of terrain look lived in, I generally go through with my airbrush and some contrast, and I kind of darken things down. I used to use washes, but now I use contrast because it's a little bit, it's not as transparent as washes, so you don't have to use as much of it. So, but yeah, it's really, really cool. I've always wanted a building that had 27 ladders up to the roof, and now with this service, I can do that. I mean, sure, you could put, well, I don't think you could fit 27 on a single wall. If you did a double-wide building, you could, but yeah. You can get a Cricut for cutting masks for painting. That's what I use a Cricut Maker, I think is the name of the company. I think that's the brand, or not, the Cricut's the brand. The model, I believe, is the Cricut Maker, I think, is what I've got. And so basically what I do, and this is a little weird, but I'm a weird guy. What I do is I come up with a design in Adobe Illustrator. You could use other programs, but it needs to be a vector-based program as opposed to Photoshop or GIMP, which are pixel-based programs. It needs to be a vector-based program. And so, like, if you need a free vector-based program, it's called Inkscape. I think you could try. I think you can download that one for free, and that one's a vector-based program, Inkscape. Anyway, for my job, I use Illustrator, so I've got Illustrator, and I've been using Illustrator for 20 years. So, Illustrator. So I just made that weird thing that just said Zem, because I was looking for like a futuristic font that could be graffiti, that also didn't have any holes in it. Like, if you've ever seen Stencils, like if it's a letter O, if you want to have the hole in the middle, then they have to put those little lines at the top and the bottom. Like when you look at like military stencils, like, you know, MASH, like if you ever watched MASH when you were a little kid or whatever, or maybe that's just me because I'm old, you have that, stencils have to have that look. If there's anything internal, it has to be kind of held in place, otherwise the middle part falls out. So to do those stencils there, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any inside parts. So the Zem, that word, it just worked. I don't know what it means. And then I did the sort of the outline bit, and so then that was two separate pieces of a stencil. I did that kind of outline bit first, sprayed some red at the top, and then sprayed some black towards the bottom, and then I set the second stencil over it that had the words in it, and I sprayed that with silver, and it was pretty quick and simple, and worked decently. Let's see here. Running out of space, need more real terrain to house the terrain. Ooh, well, there you go. Let's see. If miniature painting was an Olympic sport, which country would be favored to win? I don't know. That's a good question. It pays to spend a little time on decent terrain. A good-looking table really adds the enjoyment of your games. I think so, too. That's why I like to spend a little bit of time on terrain. I know, that's why I like to weather stuff a little bit. That's why I want to get in there and add a little bit of this and that. Like that gray building, I haven't decided yet if I'm completely done yet, if I want to, I don't know, splotch some stuff on it. My thought is that there's not going to be rust on it because it's not a metal building. I mean, it looks sort of 3D printed, even though I used filler primer on it, gave like 2 nice coats of filler primer. It still has some striations and stuff like that. But really, in the future, buildings are going to be 3D printed. So when someone's like, well, that looks 3D printed, you're like, yeah, good eye. This building was 3D printed. And they'll be like, no, but I mean, like, it's a piece of terrain. The robots came along and, they had this area set up and then they 3D printed the building. Like, how do you think that buildings in the future have, like, all curved edges and junk like that you see in the movies? They didn't sit there with a bunch of 2x4s and stud out a curved wall. That would be a giant pain in the butt. That's why generally, at least here in America, where houses are very frequently made out of wood, that's why they're all generally rectangular or square. You don't usually make a house that's round because it's really hard to do with square wood. So, but when it's 3D printed by robots, well, that's easy. So anyway, there you got that. The one with the most dirt on the other judges, I don't know if I missed that part. I use contrast paints for recessed panel lines. Flows in the cracks real nice. Yeah, I can see that too, definitely. Hey, Emily, how you doing? Inks are also good for airbrushing strong colors, but still transparent. Yeah, I don't own a lot of inks. The only ink I own is a Liquitex white acrylic ink. I don't think I own any regular inks. I don't, no. I bought a maker but wasn't using it enough, so I gave it away. I've been liking it for stencils a lot, and when I start building more terrain a little bit more from scratch, and I've messed with this a little bit, I can cut, if I use the right blade, I can cut, for lack of a better term, it's chipboard, but it's not super thick chipboard. It's basically old cereal boxes. So you take an old cereal box and you slide it in there and you cut the parts that you need for it. And now when you build the side of a building, instead of just having it be flat or whatever, you can kind of put in like kind of raised bits and things like that. But you can cut them all, and then, rather than having to sit there and mess around with an X-Acto, you can just come up with the design and then cut it out with the machine and then just glue that to the side of your piece of terrain, and then it looks better. You know what I mean? It's all about embellishments with terrain. It really is. So oils for pinwashes and weathering is awesome. I really haven't used any oils. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot. I used oils in high school, not for painting miniatures, but actually in painting class. And I don't like something. I think it's the linseed oil. That smell, I'm not a big fan. Now, obviously, you don't have to use linseed. From what I understand, you don't have to use linseed oil for making washes for oil paints. But I don't know. I haven't looked at it that close. Making stencils with Cricut. Oh my god, my Maker 3 just found another use. Oh yeah, you just want to get yourself some stuff called Frisket film. Frisket, Frisket film. And it's a film for, the airbrushers have been using it for years for stencils. And generally you lay it over something, a design, you cut it out, because it's kind of translucent-y. And then there's like a backing, and then there's the actual film part. And the sticky part to the film is, like I said, about as sticky as a Post-it note. And then you just sort of peel the parts off you need. You make yourself a little thing, stick it to your thing, airbrush, peel it away, done. It works out real nice, actually. And the hardest part, honestly, is to try to get the Cricut machine to not destroy the Frisket film, because there's no setting in there. I did recently, on the most recent time I did it, find a setting called Vinyl Stencil. I think that might have been what it was. And that worked okay, but it did cut like all the way through, not just the film, but also the backing paper. But yeah, it is what it is. Let's see here. I saw a video of them 3D printing buildings the other day. Just looks like a massive FDM printer. Crazy stuff. Yeah, that's been going on for a while now. I remember years ago seeing a guy who basically just came up with the idea. He's like, I should build a 3D print buildings, and he 3D printed like a castle for his kids to play in the backyard. And it is like this kind of real liquidy, cement, concrete, whatever. And it does. It looks like a giant FDM printer, and it just kind of moves along, and it does its thing, and it's kind of just pooping out this like, it's about maybe with this big around like at the nozzle, and it's just like a big bead of like this kind of concrete stuff, and it just goes layer by layer by layer, and then it dries, and then like he just kind of took like the tower to the castle and got a forklift, and he's a construction guy, so he had, and he made this cool little castle. I think he lived in Minnesota. Look up 3D printed Minnesota castle. I don't know, that'll probably Google. But yeah, so but you're starting to see it in other countries too. I've actually watched a bunch of different videos of like commercial people like building housing and stuff like that out of 3D printing. So yeah, that's the way. I mean, especially if you're like going to a new planet, rather than getting there and then having to figure out how to build stuff, you send a bunch of robots ahead of time and have them build everything, and then you get there and you're like, hey, cool, and you just move in. Maybe if it's set up with electricity. I don't know. I'm working on my miniatures by sitting in my recliner and thinking how to get a dirt color on the base with what I have. Well, I mean, honestly, if you're looking for dirt, if you just start mixing colors together, you will generally get brown. Pretty much, yeah. That's most of the time you mix a bunch of colors together, you're going to get brown. So that's not too hard. Started to paint Cursed City last night. Nice. Inks are awesome for easy weathering and tying together a piece of terrain with color and shade. Yeah, I think also being able to kind of get a tone, like where you've got these like those that gray building, that's that one from Terrain Machine. With those other buildings, I'm still going to prime them all the same with the same filler primer, but on some of them I will just then paint them, like just take my regular airbrush and just paint them another color that's not crazy. Like I'm not going to have a blue building or a bright red building. I like to keep my buildings all kind of a bit more muted. So maybe there'll be one that's a darker gray. Maybe there'll be one that's maybe got a bit more brown in it, that kind of stuff. And then I'll go and do the rest of the things to it like I've done with these. But yeah, I don't want to make every building exactly the same color, but I also don't want to have crazy color buildings either. just, I mean, in certain situations it makes sense, but for sci-fi, kind of grungy, backwater colonies on whatever, yeah, then I want to keep stuff a little bit more, like I said, grungy. Got some schmutz on my glasses. Green and red make brown. That's true. Usually yellow and purple would make brown. I mean, in a perfect world, equal parts green and red should actually make neutral gray. Equal parts, like perfect red and green, should make neutral gray. But we don't live in a perfect world, and pigments are never like perfect, so generally it skews more towards brown. I learned that from college, thank you very much. But yeah, that's the case. In a video you made after Adepticon a couple years ago, you were going through the loot you picked up, and you talked about seeking out secret weapon parchment wash because you use it for terrain. How so? Oh, yeah. I was just kind of mentioning that. It makes terrain work great. Okay. So earlier I was talking about this terrain from Mantic, which I think was also called Battle Systems, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was called something else. Anyway, and I wanted to make these structures kind of almost look like they're made from old shipping containers. You're sitting there waiting for a train, and you see all these shipping containers go by. They have this very sort of sun-bleached look to them. That parchment wash, when you brush it kind of heavy over, especially with a wide brush, you can get a lot of streaks. You put it over like some terrain that you've done, and it will make it look more sun-bleached when it dries, because it will, not just get into the crevices, because it's more of a glaze than a wash, really. It will kind of stay in the flat areas, too, and it will kind of lighten them up a little bit and kind of desaturate them a touch as well because of that color. So yeah, that messing with that parchment stuff, it really, really helps in terrain because it can make stuff look more sun-bleached. So, but again, you want to generally try to use it with maybe a bit of a bigger or even a wider brush and try to get streaks, because then you get that kind of verticality. Not only is it sun bleach, but it's also sort of the acid rain or whatever, that kind of stuff, and you can make your stuff look more realistic because of that. You can't 3D print an underground pool like those dudes with their oddly satisfying videos where they hand dig the pits with rocks and spring and feed it with a bamboo pipe. Those are I have watched some of those, yeah. It's like just like a dude or a couple of dudes in like loincloths basically, and they make like a underground pool and a house, and somehow out of dirt they make a microwave oven, and it's amazing. But yeah, those are. It's yeah, because you just be sitting there, you'd be like, what is that guy doing? And you're just watching, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, and then you're like, wow, that's a half hour I've been watching this video, and that's how they get you. I bought some of the heavy cardboard terrain, great for small apartments for storage, but I haven't been building lots of scatter terrain with my 3D printer. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing a bunch of scatter terrain with my 3D printer as well. I think that's going to be fun. The robots will take over one day, and you want to stay on their good side, so say thanks for your toaster or whatever. There you go. It's true. Do you use white spirits for cleaning enamels off of models? Can I use the same thing for oils? Second part, I don't know. First part, I think I use mineral spirits, and I don't know if mineral spirits are the same as white spirits. They might be. But yeah, when I do enamel wash, if I need certain spots to be specifically very clean, and the wiping away with like an old t-shirt chunk doesn't work, then I will take an old brush and put some mineral spirits on it and then clean up the enamel wash that way. But I don't know the difference between mineral spirits and white spirits. Somebody here in the chat probably does. I've been looking at Oathmark lately, not super sure about the rules, but the models are awesome. I bought some of the Oathmark skeletons and goblins, I think. I think I own a box of goblins and a box of skeletons. Grungy colony counterpoint. Humans tend to color their stuff. Local pigments, hoarded industrial stuff might be used to add color to plain walls, details. Like, I'll throw some, again, like graffiti and stuff like that on there, but just driving around downtown, like where I live, all the buildings are brown. I don't know what the heck the deal is, but like everything is brown. It's just so, brown bricks, mostly brown bricks. But even when it's concrete, it seems to be brown. I don't know why that is. So yeah, brown and gray are, most buildings, if you look at them, are brown and gray. Like if you want to go crazy and be like, this building is bright red, cool, but that's I don't know. The other thing is too with terrain, and I think I made a video about this. The reason I like my terrain to be pretty neutral colors because then it makes my models pop more. When my models are the colorful thing, if you have like super crazy colorful terrain, you kind of lose the models on the board. But when the terrain is a little bit more muted and like earth tone or whatever, grays, browns, that kind of stuff, and your models are cool and blue and orange and silver and what, then they pop out more, and I prefer that as far as looking at the table. What cricket blade do you use for the Frisket film? I think the one that came with it. I don't know enough about all the blades that are available for it, so I don't have a great answer for that. It tells you, like, in the app or whatever, you, let's say, vinyl stencil, and it's like, okay, we'll put in this blade and then do this, and it didn't say, or no, it said you already have that blade in, or whatever. It didn't be like, hey, you have the wrong blade in. It was just like, well, you need this blade, and you need nothing in the second because there's 2 slots or whatever you put blades in. So it's like, you don't need anything slot A, slot B, you need this, okay, green check or whatever, and so I was good. So I don't remember off the top of my head what it was, unfortunately. Mantic Dead Zone terrain is perfect for the new Kill Team. Kill Team now uses 3-inch height restrictions, or sections. Nice. In the middle of a 14-day challenge to build and paint a new Age of Sigmar Army 750-point list. Chosen army is Sylvaneth with autumn-themed colors. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely... Sylvaneth are nice because you can dry brush a lot on those trees, and that's really... It makes it look really good, I think. Can't find black primer to save my life. Like rattle can primer or like airbrush primer? If it's airbrush primer, I would tell you to go look at Monument Hobbies, their airbrush primer, specifically the black and the white. All the 5 colors they've got: black, white, gray, black, brown. I'm trying to remember if I've used the green yet. I don't remember if I have, but so far I've been super happy with all those primers. Have been spectacular. Are you excited for the new Kill Teams, and if so, what faction would you plan to play? I mean, I currently have 7 painted factions for Kill Team, so I hope people will play some of them, but I'll probably have to tweak some things a little bit here and there. We'll see how it goes. It'll be interesting to see. I would like to be able to play my Death Guard again, and I hope it's not a requirement that I need Poxwalkers, because I kind of hate those models. I don't hate the models. I hate the faces. I guess I could just cut off their heads and give them helmets or something like that. I don't know. I could give them all Space Marine helmets. That'd be sort of funny. But yeah, I don't like the faces on those guys. So, yeah, I would like to be able to run I'm looking forward to being able to run my Death Guard again. I'm also looking forward to being able to play my AdMech, because I have not gotten a chance to, since I got them finished this what was it, end of last year, beginning of this year. I haven't had a chance to play them, so I'd like to be able to do that too. Let's see here. Mineral spirits and odorless spirits are basically the same thing. Also use makeup sponges for removing oil and enamel paints instead of cloth. I like to use the cloth, like the t-shirt material, for when I'm wiping the stuff off. I don't use the mineral spirits, then I just wipe it off. And I've never gotten like weird little threads or anything like that. But I should look at makeup sponges. I keep thinking about doing that, but I haven't. I think it's because the reason I don't use makeup sponges, honestly, is because I was in a play my senior year in high school, and when they were putting makeup on me, the makeup lady, like, I had a lot of stubble, and she would just be like, and there would just be makeup sponge shrapnel all over my shirt, and it just was raw. It didn't work out hot. So I've always looked at makeup brushes and being like, I'd use those in my miniatures, but I'm just going to just shred them, and I don't, especially if you paint in chaos, they're very spiky. But yeah, I should take a look at that. I do have some, like, they're like Q-tips, but they're designed for electronic stuff, so they're like much more tightly wound buds, and they come to a point, and I've used those quite a bit too. Just dip them in a little bit of mineral spirits and then clean some spots up if I need to. Let's see. Should not have listened to Ash Parker and made my Warcry terrain teal and red. Yeah, like, I've seen a lot of people do like all kinds of crazy like vaporwave colors and stuff like that. I'm like, that's cool, but now my miniatures look. I painted my stuff gray and the wood parts wood color and stuff like that, and I think they look great. Is it the Cricket Joy or one of the more expensive machines? I think it's one of the more expensive machines. I believe the one that I'm using is called the Cricket Maker. And I think there are new ones. I think there's a Cricket Maker 2 and maybe a Cricket Maker 3, but I think I have the original Cricket Maker. I wonder if we will see Krieg exclusive armored vehicle kits. A new tank or two would be sweet. You know, I don't know if they just decided to make this one set of Krieg just for Kill Team, and then they'll release it separately, because they've said, I think, pretty sure that they're going to release it separately. But I don't know if they're going to go full on and make like a codex and the whole deal. Maybe they will, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. Trying to chat using an iPad is frustrating. Keep messing up and breaking up my chat. Yeah, well, you're on YouTube. I'm thinking of Twitch. The Twitch iPad app is not ideal. It's not great. The YouTube one is maybe a touch better. I'm not sure. I saw a guy doing clown makeup on Poxwalkers. That makes a lot of sense. Those faces work way better with clown makeup. Just picked up the Gaunt's Ghost box. Figured they make a solid Kill Team. I would hope that they would make actual Kill Team rules for that box, but I don't know. We'll see. That'd be pretty cool if they did, though. I don't think the Poxwalkers are required. You just have to accept only having 3 to 4 figures in your Kill Team. Well, see, that's the thing. If it's like you can either only have 3 or 8. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's possible, but I get the feeling that, like, if in current Kill Team you should be able to, I can run 6 Plague Marines or whatever, Death Guard Plague Marines. I should be able to. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, because I know they said like Space Marines are generally going to be a 1-fire team Kill Team, whereas other armies will be 2. But I would think then, because 8 Poxwalkers is garbage if it's just by itself 8 Poxwalkers. So if it's 8 Poxwalkers or 3 Death Guard, I'm betting it's at least, I don't know. Again, I'm guessing here, but I really hope that I can at least run 6 Death Guard. Uncle Adam had uncle level stubble even in high school. I did. yeah, I did. I get the impression that what wakes Uncle Adam in the middle of the night are Poxwalker nightmares. No, I just don't like their faces. They're just, again, I really like Nurgle stuff, but I don't like the comic relief Nurgle stuff. I don't like little fat farting Nurglings hopping around, putting on Space Marine helmets and laughing and all that. I don't know what it is. I love like the mortal Space Marine or the mortal Nurgle stuff. Your Space Marine types, your what the hell, the Blake Kings, those kind of guys, because those guys were mortal and then converted over to Nurgle and got all weird and stuff like that. Whereas the Nurgle demons, your plague spreaders, plague belchers, like all that stuff with the smiley dumb faces and all that junk, like all of those the Nurgle demons, no interest. But like, I was a human and now I'm all infected with Nurgle. Those are all very cool models in my opinion. This is, again, just my opinion. Sitting here painting my first Necromunda gang from the Underhive Wars box my girlfriend picked up. Delac seem like a playstyle I'm not used to. Any tips and strategies, approaches? No, sorry. I'm not a strategy guy. And I have not played Delac. I like Van Sar, but I'm still not even I'm not a good strategy guy there either. I wish I had bought a few boxes of those easy-to-build Poxwalkers. Can't find them in any local shops anymore. I mean, if you find... I would think if you just look on eBay, because I bet you there are people who are shifting them because they were in the original 8th edition starter box, the Dark Imperium, and whatever the hell that box was called. There would be a whole bunch, a shed load of those, if you will, out there, probably on eBay. So you might want to take a look at that. I'm guessing that the Krieg plastics are to test the waters for a larger release, but considering that the current pipeline is 3+ years, yeah, I get the feeling that it's unlikely that they're like, oh, let's test this and see, and then we'll decide to make more. They would have probably already kind of planned ahead on that to some degree, I would think. I could be wrong, but I have a suspicion that this will be like a one-off box. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. It'd be kind of cool to see some different types of... I'd like to see anything new for the Guard. I guess that's something cool. Let's do that. What about Deathwatch? Will they be a sub-faction for Space Marines? I mean, right now, Deathwatch are their own faction and kill team, so I would be surprised if they do that, but I don't know. They haven't said. Why not give the Poxwalkers some other heads? Should be easy enough. Well, because they're easy to build, it would be basically kind of clipping away and then maybe doing a little bit of neck sculpting. It's not like with Space Marines where you can just put a different head in there into the socket where their armor goes. They're just like, because their heads kind of go straight down. Oops, sorry. Their heads kind of go straight down like into their bodies and stuff like that. So I'd have to cut it off the neck, find another head that would fit on there, and then something. Like I said, I might just try to find helmets. More Night of the Living Dead than Shaun of the Dead for your Poxwalkers? Yeah, I can see that. Uncle Adam, which do you prefer, the fun orcs of 40k or the newer serious orcs seen in Age of Sigmar Dominion? I like them both, and I'm going to say that because I want to build a Warcry of like brutes, like orc brutes. I think I've got that box, and I'm going to definitely do that, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And I like that because but I also like the skinny ones. I'll be honest with you, the new skinny ones, they almost just seem like a different species of orc, and the Hobgrots, they're obviously a different species, and I like them. I think they're fine. I'm not a big fan of, I don't know. Like, I've never been a big orc fan. I want to have an orc kill team as well, though my orc kill team, they'll have fezzes, because I found Cromlech makes heads that are basically like orc heads, but they have fezzes, and I was like, well, obviously I'm going to have to buy those. So I do want to go down that road. I don't know about like with the orc commandos that are going to be in the new box or whatever. They're good models. I just don't know if they're my style. I don't know. I'll have to figure that out eventually. Nurgle stuff is different strokes, I think. I love the demons and find the mortal stuff not to my taste at all. I mean, that's the case with all of this stuff. It's, Vince is all in on Slaanesh and doesn't really like Nurgle, and I don't like Slaanesh and like Nurgle, and everybody's got their preferences. Sold a lot of Poxwalkers locally. They always get snapped up fast. Krieg could be the new regiment they focus on for the next Imperial Guard Codex, in the same way that they've released a Beast Snagas for the Orcs. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. It'd be kind of cool if they went that way. It'd be neat if this was kind of like the initial kind of like, it's out there and then people start thinking about it, and then all of a sudden you start to see this bigger box. That could be a marketing thing. But yeah, it's very possible. You're looking forward to the Commandos. Nice. New skinny orcs remind me of more of the Lord of the Rings orcs than Age of Sigmar. Not an orc fan, but I like both too. I enjoyed painting the 3 that I did, and I want to do more, I think. I think it would be sort of fun. Well, I have to see if I can find the right models. Like I said, I'm giving some of the Hobgrots guns, and I'm going to use them in Space Weirdos. That's another project I'm working on, but I didn't take any pictures of that because they don't have any paint on them yet. They're just like, there's like 4 guys built and a 5th guy who's built but doesn't have any sci-fi bits on him yet. I just don't know if I could necessarily sci-fi up the Dominion, like the whatever, the Gut Rippers or whatever dumb name they got. I don't know if I could do that necessarily. I'm not sure. Don't like Slaanesh. Don't let Senior Pinchy hit that. Yeah, that's the first. Honestly, that's like the first Slaanesh model or Slaanesh or whatever model that I've ever painted. The leader. So I'm currently on Twitch. I'm working on a Reign in Hell Cabal, and it's an all GW Cabal. So I'm using all GW models, and then my next Cabal that I do will be no GW models. But I wanted to go this direction, and I needed a leader, and I wasn't finding a model that I was looking for, and then I finally saw this model at the store, and I was like. So I bought, I think they're called the Slangor Fiend Bloods. It's like a box of 3, and they're basically goat people. And I think that's part of it, is that, yeah, it's a Slaanesh thing, but he's also a goat people. And I like goat people. So, yeah, he's got lobster claws, but he's also got a goat face. So I'm okay with it. So, yeah, he's the leader. I was working on him, actually, on Friday. And I think he's pretty close to being done. I like 40k dark fantasy, but sometimes it feels like the miniatures step on like almost a Borderlands silliness. Sometimes it cheapens the vibe. Again, that's kind of a personal preference thing. There are some people that like that kind of silliness, and there's other people that want it to be very serious. I mean, again, it's kind of personal preference. I like I don't have a problem with silliness at all, certainly. Um, but sometimes I just don't. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but in my miniatures, that sometimes I don't dig it, and I don't know. Maybe it's just a type of humor that I don't like as much, like the nurglings and all that kind of stuff. Um, I'm not sure. Like I don't like The Office. I don't like watching that show. I know that there are talented people in there, and I'm sure it was very well done, and obviously it was very well rated and all that kind of stuff. But it's a type of humor that I don't enjoy. That kind of like uncomfortable embarrassment humor, and I can't do that. So everybody's got their own different kind of interests and that kind of stuff, and so I think that's why it's a good thing that they have, because there's no like comic relief Eldar. You know what I mean? Like that would be weird. I don't know. They got to slide it in there here and there, but there's certain places they can do it. They can do it in the orcs. They can kind of do it in the Nurgle demon stuff. There's no like Primera Space Marine, but the back of his his armor fell off and you can see his butt, and he's like, oh, like that's just not a thing that they're doing. Like like this guy, this is like a corn dude from the original Age of Sigmar, and he doesn't have a silly face. He seems angry, and he's going to hit somebody with an axe, and that's his job. So anyway. Forge World Demon Brutes would be so great for Reign in Hell. I don't think I've seen those models. I should take a look. Here's for hoping a Guard reboot that has more flexibility than the Cadian sculpts. Supporting hands sculpted onto the weapon makes me nuts. I mean, I can see the benefit to it. There's times when I just want to use the weapon, but that's usually because I want to use it for a different game, and I'm sure they're not necessarily into that. So, and it's also difficult sometimes if trying to get the hand to fit the gun. Like if they make the hand that looks like this, and if you don't have the right gun in there, then either it's too wide, or not wide enough, or whatever. So I can understand why they mold that in there. But there are times when I'm like, I just really want that gun though. Now I have to try to grind off that hand or cut it away with an X-Acto, because it's holding the gun up in the front part. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. There's a lot less silliness in 40K now than there was originally. That's true. It used to be, the game was, when it was originally launched, was a lot of satire and a lot more kind of goofiness here and there. And it is less than it used to be. And I don't know. I'm of two minds, because there's certain, again, I think it's the type of humor you like. Like those Nurglings, that's not my type of humor, but like other types of maybe satire style humor about like how this army does this and like, that stuff, maybe like the way that a lot of the army choices and things like that, there are, I forget what the name, one of the orcs is named after Margaret Thatcher, because it's from the late 80s when this stuff came out. And it's the issue is, to some degree, is that people have started to take this very seriously as if 40K is a way to live, and it's not. It's not good for most people. It's not good at all. And nobody is the good guy, really. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Harlequin space clowns are pretty funny. They're funny looking, but not necessarily in a good way. If you played 2nd edition orcs, you couldn't help but laugh when one of your crazy weapons blew up, wasting half your army in the first turn. That is fun, and that does definitely, that's in the situation where it's less about models but more about the rules, kind of having a laugh, if you will. And I kind of dig that stuff too. Again, because I'm not a competitive player, it's a great story when you're like, and then I rolled a 666, and then this, and then half my army got blowed up or whatever. That's a fun story. But when you're like very serious and you're 4 games in and 12 hours into your tournament and all that stuff, and then half your army blows up because you rolled 666, that you don't like that generally. That's not a thing that's a. Tzeentch is my personal favorite Chaos Demon model style. I want to build a Reign in Hell Tzeentch model Cabal. Nice. Let's see. I'm crossing my fingers for the return of Chaos Dwarves, but if they don't have big hats, I won't be happy. Well, didn't they make big hat Chaos Dwarves in Mantic? I thought they did. Abyssal Dwarves, aren't they basically kind of the same thing? I would like to see squats. I think they'd be a lot of fun. I mean, Lord knows you could just make squats. There's lots of models out there you could do that if you wanted to. Biggest problem I've seen is people went from viewing it as juvenile to being serious. It's not Tolstoy. The people, yeah, that's true too. Yeah, that's very true. We're not talking about it. We're not talking about Tolstoy here. We're talking about Toy Story, kind of, where we've got, little models that we're pushing around and going pew pew pew, and we need to remember that sometimes, that we should be having fun. I think that's important. All the games like fun, but I don't have any friends I can play with, unfortunately. I do like painting and collecting miniatures. All the gaming I do is on the PC and consoles. I mean, one thing, if you've got any local shops near you where people play, sometimes checking that stuff out can be, I've met new people to play with through going to the shop. Sometimes your local shop might have, like, I know my local shop lately on Saturdays is trying to push miniature gaming, so they've got like open miniature gaming every Saturday, which they generally do. You can open miniature gaming anytime, unless there's like a big tournament for something else going on, then there might not be the space. But they also, just the fact that they put it out there on their website and all that kind of stuff. Oh, opening gaming on Saturday. That'll hopefully spark something. You'd be like, oh, I could go play on Saturday. That's cool. But then they also have like 1 week, like you could play whatever you wanted, but they were going to have people there who were playing and giving some demos of like Star Wars Legion. I think next week is Marvel Crisis Protocol Lunchtime Rainbow, whatever the heck that thing is called. I know that's going to be going on. I poked my head in yesterday because I had to get some more contrast paint. And what were they playing? 40K. There's a couple of guys in there playing 40K. So yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff where you keep an eye on like your local shops if you have any, and if you don't have any local shops, then it's understandable. It's difficult to get people together and all that kind of stuff. We are working on bringing back the Game 4 app, so that should also hopefully help as well. But that's in progress. Is Game 4 active again? It is not yet. No. Let's see. What are the chances of getting a Rain in Hell bat rap / demo game on the channel? So I've got to get 2 finished Cabals at least before I do that. There is also a chance that at some point Vince is going to come visit me and Sam, and then maybe we could film it then. But yeah, that's what I'm in progress on that. I got to come up with some decent terrain. I think I've got enough terrain I could pull that off. Yeah, I've got stuff I could use that could work fine already. I don't have to make anything new. I do eventually want to make like a Hell board, for Rain and Hell and all that kind of stuff. But for right now, I could easily do a battle report. Oh, well, once I get a second, like I have models painted that I painted to get into the book, because we painted models, photographed them, sent them to Scott from Artists Empire, who did amazing digital paint over shenanigans. Like this thing here. Those are 3D printed models that Game Format printed for me, and then I painted them, and then photographed them, and then on a white background, and then sent them to Scott. And then he went didn't use Photoshop. He uses a program on the iPad actually called Procreate, all one word, and puts in all the cool extra fire and the digital everything and all that stuff over the top of them, and all the different pieces in this book. Like those are 2 3D printed models that I painted and then photographed, and then again Scott did his stuff. And some of them in here are Vince, like that's a Vince. That's a 3D model by Archvillain Games, and Vince painted that and then photographed it on a white background, and then Scott went in and added all the cool fire effects and the dark spookiness and all that jazz, and did amazing work. Anyway, so those models that I did for that work great for models, like a photographic model, but they don't come together to make a real usable Cabal. So that's why I'm working on a Cabal and then a second Cabal, and then we'll do a battle report is the plan. Do you have any thoughts on Conquest, Last Argument of Kings? I just got the 2-player starter box. Really like the models so far. I think the models are very interesting. They are a larger scale than most of the other games that I play, so that's a little weird. I am not a fan of rank and flank games, meaning you move them in rectangles. But I know that those guys have also produced now a skirmish game because you can use the models. The models are on circle bases, but you put them into the trays and they have little holes for the circle bases. And so you could just use them as normal skirmish style games as well with circle bases, which I think was a smart move on their part. The models are cool. I just wish they were a bit sharper. The actual, like the molds, you know how like a GW model, like a chaos model, you're like putting it together and it can literally poke you. The models are very cool from Conquest, but there's no sharp, at least for the ones that I've seen, there's no sharp details. They're very kind of smooth and rounded, and that's part of the mold making process from what I understand. It's more expensive to make a super sharp mold than it is to make one that's a little bit more rounded and smooth. But they do have some really great models, some neat stuff. And like I said, I'm glad they've added the skirmish game. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but I would like to definitely do a demo of it at some, maybe I don't know if they're going to be. I should check and see if they're going to be at Gen Con. Maybe they will. I hope they are. Three cheers for the local friendly game stores. Absolutely. Very much looking forward to Game 4 getting back online. Went to a board game meetup the other day and no one showed up. Yeah, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. Let's see here. I don't really enjoy demons, but I am making a cabal of crusaders, I think Diablo kind of Nephilim, that are crusading into hell to kill the demons my friends are making for Rain in Hell. Cool. That's pretty cool. I went to my friendly local game store for my 40K league on board game night. Could barely walk to and from the table because of all the people. Now my city's on the verge of shutting down again. Yeah, that's also a thing that we're watching and a bit concerned about, obviously, with Game 4 as well, because we're working on it because we're redesigning kind of the front end, meaning the side, the facing part that you see, the back end, the database-y stuff. That's not really changing too much. Anyway. That's in progress, but while that's going on, we're also keeping a close eye on where there are still lockdowns and where lockdowns are coming back and all that kind of stuff, because we don't want to open things up and then the lockdowns are back and then we're back in the same thing. So yeah, that's unfortunate, but it's the direction we're going. Hero Forge is a lot of fun. I made a Tim the Enchanter Monty Python style just to try it out. It came out great. Nice. That sounds like fun. Bought Rain in Hell. Looks great, Uncle. Hoping to have my first game next week. Nice. Good to hear. I won the Conquest of Kings box in a Christmas raffle, but never found anyone who plays. Models are nice, though. Yeah, like, some of them are really interesting. The scale, like I said, is also really, it's larger. It's probably closer to 40 millimeter. So, with some models, it doesn't matter, because you're like, well, this is just a big guy, But sometimes you're like, well, this is supposed to be somebody who's, and now they're way, like, a head taller than everybody. It depends. Hey, Gaddis Gaming, how you doing? I miss you guys. We miss you too. I got one of those Conquest hero models. Very nice. Was fun to paint. Too bad it's not 28mm scale. See, yeah, they are bigger. Games Workshop said there will be old world miniatures where they will design new models for old school Warhammer armies such as Chaos Dwarves and Empire. How do you feel about this? I never played Fantasy. I never got into anything GW Fantasy until Age of Sigmar came out. So, Plus, they're going to be on square bases, and I don't like square bases, so it's going to be rank and flank. It's not my style of game. I'm glad that some folks are going to be interested in playing the old world. And if that, I have a suspicion it's going to be kind of like Horus Heresy is to 40K. So it's probably going to be mostly through Forge World, but maybe not. But it will be a smaller portion of folks playing it. But I'm glad that they're going down that road at least. Let's see. I had my first post-lockdown BattleTech game recently. My mercs took it home. Nice. What else we got here? Where are we at? Okay. Do you have any Rackham Confrontation models, and have you ever played that skirmish game? I'm familiar with the game. I don't have any of their models. I know there were two versions. There was the metal model version, which I know a lot of painters covet. But then there was also a pre-painted plastic version of Confrontation. There was also they made a sci-fi version of that game, kind of, called AT-43, which was also pre-painted plastics, which were actually not bad pre-painted plastics. They were pretty cool. But that was more popular than the Confrontation pre-painted plastics. And I don't know much about the actual like metal model version of the game, but I know that it was a French company called Rackham, and they put out some cool magazines that were super high art piece magazines and that kind of stuff. That was kind of cool too. I saw those at the local shop a couple of times. Yeah, but I never got into I bought a bunch of AT-43 stuff and even played AT-43 a little bit, but it was mainly like I was like, I'm kind of buying these models for other games. But they're pretty cool. I actually just found some of my AT-43 models yesterday when I was cleaning out a box in the basement that I wanted to not just be a box anymore. So yeah. Old World worst case conversion fodder for 40k in Age of Sigmar. Yeah, I can see that. And there we go. Finished building an upscaling box of Mark IV Space Marines. Nice. I'll watch Old World battle reports, but stick to playing Kings of War. The rule set is so much better than Warhammer Fantasy Battles. It'll be interesting to see if they change the Old World and the rules, or if it's just basically like 9th edition, I guess, Fantasy Battles. That'll be interesting to see what they do. I would think that they would do newer style rules, but if their target audience is the people who still have been holding on hope for regular fantasy, then they might just keep it the same. So yeah, it's hard to say. I loved AT-43. I had red block. Yeah, I had the UNA, and I did have some red block. I know someplace back in the bowels of my basement, I know I have... I think I have like that. There was a box that you could buy for red block that was like nearly an entire starter army, including some vehicles. And I'm pretty sure I've still got that box back there someplace. And I could easily use some of that stuff for even just like terrain in other games like Stargrave or Space Weirdos or something like that. When I keep mentioning Space Weirdos, folks, that is... I don't know what that is. It's this little game here. I printed mine out, but it's a PDF that you can get from Wargame Vault as well. It's $5. It's a fun little 16-page sci-fi skirmish game by Garsky Games that I've also been a big fan of lately. I like a lot of small games like that because they're just fun to do. I really enjoy, being able to, like, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I got this game and now that's the only game I play. I like to hop around a lot between skirmish games, which is easier to do because they're smaller forces. When you are playing a big army game, you have a tendency to kind of pick one and go with it because it's a lot more investment, both in time and money, to play that game. That's why I like skirmish games better. Ever paint Battletech miniatures? The first miniature I ever painted was a Battletech miniature, and I still have it. It's on my hobby table downstairs. It was painted with a silver enamel testers paint, like the ones you used to put on your cars, like your model cars, model airplanes, that kind of stuff. Because I was kind of into model cars, mainly model airplanes. I was into that when I was a kid. I have not painted too many since. I haven't played Battletech in forever. I played a demo of Battletech 3-4 years ago at Gen Con. And, it was the new classic Battletech by Catalyst, and I'm like, I want to see what they changed. And it didn't seem like they had changed a lot to me. So, yeah, but I don't know. Battletech is more bookkeeping than I want to do, generally, it seems. I bought some Batman miniatures recently, nice sculpts. I knew some people in my not local area, but like in the middle part of Wisconsin that were getting into Batman. I have cogs. Oh, I forgot about the cogs. Yeah, they were real skinny. Therians and a few UNA and red block. I had some of the Therians too because I think that was the starter box that you got originally was UNA versus Therians. It was a cool game. I liked AT-43 was neat. It had like cool storylines and I don't know, just a bunch of really interesting stuff. And the models for pre-paints were actually quite nice. They were pretty decent for pre-paints. I should have bought the Carmines when they were being liquidated. Space armor gorillas? Yeah, the Carmines were super cool because they were huge gorilla, basically, just gorillas, space gorillas in armor. It was pretty cool. Like they were like genetically modified. So they were gorillas, but they were real smart and also in armor. I've built and painted around 80 of the old metal Battletech models. Still have around the same amount waiting until the urge strikes. Nice. The cynic in me thinks that some of the hardest core Warhammer Fantasy Battle people are the same ones that posted YouTube vids of them burning their armies when Age of Sigmar came out. Not a community I'd want to associate with, to be honest. Here's the thing. I think if you really wanted to strike back at Games Workshop, instead of you burning your army in the driveway, what you should have done, the person who burned their army in the driveway, I know it's not you, but you know what I'm saying. You should have filmed you putting it on eBay and selling it to somebody else who then bought used and didn't buy new. That actually affects Games Workshop or any company. If I buy it from somebody else and not from the game company, then that's actually... But if you like, oh, I'm going to burn it, then they're like, cool, now someone else has to buy new models, then they're not going to buy those models because they're all melty in your driveway. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's like, it's kind of like, there's this old story about how, I think De Beers, the diamond people, you know, like they had this whole marketing campaign about how really, Grandma really wants you to bury her with her rings. You shouldn't, you know. She would really like to be buried with her rings. Well, sure, because then if you want to get engaged, then you can't use Grandma's ring. You have to go buy a new one. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. It has nothing to do with Grandma. It has everything to do with marketing and business. So honestly, yeah, that person, it would have not been as dramatic, obviously, but probably he wouldn't have gotten laughed at as much either. You know what I mean? So there's that too. How do you manage mind space with that many games you play? Brain must be melting. I'm just basically not very good at any of them, so that helps. And also, they're all generally skirmish games have a tendency to be a little bit simpler, so there's not as much stuff to remember. If you want to be really good at a game, you do sort of need to focus on one or two games. But if you want to just have a good time and play some games and have to kind of relearn the rules a little bit here and there sometimes, it's not that bad. Gorilla Grodd and Power Armor? Kinda, a little bit, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Gaddis Gaming. Burning your army makes no sense because GW already got that money. Yep, that's exactly it. People I know are playing one-page rules as opposed to playing the new Age of Sigmar. One of the guys bought a ton of Rune War figures for it, and the army looks great. Yeah, I wish Rune War would have... Well, I was going to say I wish it would have worked, but really it was a rank and flank game, so it's not my style anyway. But some of the models were kind of cool. Like, that big worm dude was pretty cool. The skeletons, I think, were kind of cool. Some of the other models where I was like, meh. But, yeah, it didn't do my job. Didn't do the job for me. There you go. So that's why because I have the Rune War starter box, because one year at Adepticon, basically, if you got the swag bag, it came with this big, giant honkin' Rune War starter box. And in some situations, I think that can help, but I really feel like the fact that they gave basically a $100 game to like every person that went to Adepticon nearly, when most of them got home, they threw that stuff on eBay, and I think that plus just the game wasn't that great. I think it didn't help that game at all. But like I said, some of the models are still pretty cool. Let's see here. When Warhammer Fantasy Battles ended, I just switched to Kings of War. I even kept the same army. Never understood the Burning Loonies. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It was very simple for a lot of people to just switch to that if they wanted to stick with the same style game. Like, that was kind of the idea why games like, Kings of War were out there, was because, I mean, admittedly, it was different in that you don't take off models as they get damaged in your rectangle, right? You instead just change the stats on your rectangle. But that's still kind of, I mean, it's not, yeah, I don't know. Play lots of games, forget the rules, and suck at them all. Now that is a hobby motto I can get behind. See? Yeah, that's kind of the way I live. I'm kind of skeptical of the new kill team trying to temper my excitement. Well, I mean, Turkey, that's kind of the... I think it's important to... Like I said, I'm a little bit better than cautiously optimistic. But that's, it'll be interesting. I like I said, I like Warcry, so the fact that it's becoming more Warcry-esque, I'm cool with, because like I said, I like the rule set. I think it's a good rule set. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Wanted to say thanks. I paint armies, but my girlfriend paints display models, and I kept comparing myself to her quality. Your advice in a ton of videos really helped me to get over self-doubt in the hobby. Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, if you're painting for tabletop, but you are always going online and looking at, or just comparing to your girlfriend's models, who is painting for display, you're not going to have the same stuff. It's certainly not going to be the same stuff. So it's important to understand that very frequently good enough is good enough. Especially when you're coming up for tabletop stuff, and especially if you're playing army games. If you've got a whole, just boatload of termagants, let's say, don't spend 5 hours on each termagant. Like, they should just whip through them quick. That's the trick. You know what I mean? Go watch some of Vince's videos, and the Goobertown was in here before. Watch some of his videos about painting like an army in a weekend and that kind of stuff. You'd definitely be able to work that out. That's how I did Cursed City. I didn't get on the hype train and just wanted to buy the pieces I wanted on eBay. Take that, GW. I mean, yeah, that's what I had friends who did that for Blackstone Fortress. They didn't want to play Blackstone Fortress, so they were like, but I want that robot guy, and I want that lady, and I want this thing. And then they just go on eBay and buy those parts. I did that too, but I don't know if it was... Yeah, I did. Because I had Blackstone Fortress, but I wanted to kit bash one of the guys in there, but I didn't want to kit bash the one I had just in case I did want to build him normal. So I just went on and found that same model. Not the robot that's actually a Man of Iron, but the other guy. He looks more like a servitor of some sort. X25, no, I don't remember his name. Anyway, X101? Maybe it's X101. Whatever. That guy. I wanted another one of him because I wanted to use him for something else, so I just went on eBay and found someone who was selling him, and then I kit bashed him, put a different head on him, all that jazz, and then boom, there you go. But I still had the one that I originally still had just in case I want to build him normal. It's just a thing. You'd say, well, but Uncle Adam, why don't you paint the one you got now, and then if you want to paint him normal later, then you go find him later on eBay, but maybe I won't be able to, so I was just planning ahead. Sometimes I like to plan ahead. Sean Gorman says, regarding Kill Team, the fact that there are no elite models like in the last edition seems like a step back, or a back step. Agreed, cautiously optimistic. I am hoping, and they haven't announced it yet, in a perfect world, since we're going to have to buy 2 books to play the damn game, the core rulebook, if it's going to be as thick as the other rulebook, should have a lot more, let's say, campaign rules and stuff like that, because the campaign rules in Kill Team were lacking severely. So it hopefully has more stuff like that in it. And then since we have to buy a compendium to get the actual data cards and stats and all that information for the different armies, I would hope, excuse me, that they would also then put in elites and commanders. But like I was saying at the earlier part of the show, I have a suspicion that they won't. I have a suspicion that they will make you buy those books separately down the road because they're addicted to books lately, it seems, and that will annoy me. But it is what it is. You either then decide, well, because I got to be honest with you, I think I played a game with commanders twice and was like, we just usually, amongst the people that I played with locally, we generally stuck with 100, maybe 125 point lists. We almost never went to 200 point commander lists just because, I don't know, it seemed like too much. That being said, I still do want to take a commander, the most expensive commander for... What I want to do is take a Broodlord at level 4, which is 196 points by itself, and then a Termagant or whatever, so now I got 200 points, and then go up against a guard unit of also 200 points, possibly with a commander in it. But the most expensive commander I think you can get for the guard is still only 65 points instead of 196. And then see, does that Broodlord get blown off the board? Does the Broodlord chew through everybody and everybody dies? Are they that equal? Are they, that kind of stuff. I still want to do that someday, but when the new version comes out, I probably won't. So either way, I think they did 2 books to make it easier to update. I can get that. I do. But like I said, if they're going to do that and separate it, then either that compendium ought to be cheap. It ought to be $25, right? And if they don't add much to the... Because it used to be for $40, you got all the rules and most of the army lists, because they did add some later on. So now if both of those books are $40, but they're about as thick as the old book, then that's not cool, because then why am I paying $40 for 2 thin books? Now, if you look at the books that came out for Warcry, the 2 thicker books, Order and Chaos, were $35. Okay, that's... And then the thinner books, Destruction and Death, were both $25. Great, not a problem. Okay, so if they made one book that had all the stuff in it including elites and commanders, and it was $40. Cool. And then the rule book was $30 or something. Great. Or I don't know, whatever. But if it's a situation where it's core rule book and then army book compendium, and then 3-4 months later, oh, here's the elites, and then I'm going to be not happy about that. So we'll see, but I have a suspicion that's what'll happen because, like I said, they love to make books and get you to buy them. And but one of the reasons why I'm not playing as much, like that's the reason that I'm not playing. It's one of the many reasons I'm not playing 40k and really not playing Age of Sigmar too much. Although I am technically going to be playing in November, I guess, at a tournament. Me and Sam are playing a very, 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 very casual tournament in Northern Illinois. It's mostly to hang out with people there. We'll see how it goes, but yeah. Looking forward to that, but otherwise, in generally, not super looking forward. I don't see myself playing 9th edition 40k because I just don't need 6 books all the time and all those models and all the time it takes, and it's just not my thing. But if you enjoy it, I'm glad you do. So it's 11 o'clock in my neck of the woods, so it is time for me to get ready to go. And my wife and I are gonna go have lunch with her parents, my in-laws, as we generally do. So. We will talk to you again. Let's see. Next time will be technically tomorrow night on Twitch, if you're interested. 7 p.m. Central Time. I'll be painting some stuff and chatting for about 3 hours. 7 p.m. Central Time. Otherwise, Friday, 10 a.m. Central Time. But otherwise, then, yeah, we'll see you again back here, hopefully, in 2 weeks. And I hope that you have a good rest of your weekend, or if it's already the next week, I hope you have a good week. And we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.